Hi everyone, how's everyone doing? So if you're watching this for the first time, my name's Marianne. I'm the owner and the counsellor at Marianne Hanson Counselling Service. I work with individuals and couples and I specialise in the areas of stress, low self-esteem, depression and relationships. And as I've said that all through January, I'll be doing book reviews. I'll be uploading them on a Monday. And the book that I want to talk about today is called Living While Black: The Essential Guide to Overcoming Racial Trauma, and this is by Ghislaine Kino-Uani. I hope I've pronounced it right. I keep getting it wrong with the pronunciations, but I will put the book on the thumbnail so you'll be able to check it out if you want to. Essentially, the book is, it's quite you can see from the book that it is quite packed and intense. There's a lot of chapters. There's a lot of information in there, so I suppose it's about you deciding on what type of books you enjoy reading. So I've taken some notes, as I always do, and I'm just going to try and narrow it down to my thoughts and then giving it a score out of 10. So the book talks about some of the stereotypes when it comes to black women, in terms of the mammy, like in those old movies where it's like, the person who has no intellect and they're always, servants, and they're just very much wanting to please their owners or bosses. The matriarch, so, this tough, strong, independent black woman who is making all the decisions at the top of the family because there's no man there. The welfare mother, the Jezebel, and it says that these stereotypes are brought into films, TV programs and in any other atmosphere so that they can justify the exploitation and abuse of black women. So the person who writes this, she's very strong-minded in terms of her views and her thoughts. Some of that is from her experience, some of it is from her profession that she's in, and some of it is just through, you can feel the passion. That's what I'm trying to say. And some people might not like that. For me, I found it really interesting. I didn't agree with everything she had to say, but I did recognise why she was saying it, and I did understand and relate to a lot of things. So she's talked about white women receive praise and admiration for their features that are typically devalued in women. And we all know that because over the years, there's been a lot of, even myself when I was at school, you would get called names because of your lips. Oh, your lips are really thick. Or people would be criticised sometimes as black women for our body shape, but then over the years the same things where people are putting fillers in their lips, or you got the Kardashians, with bum implants, and that has exploded. Cosmetic surgery where having a big butt or having big lips is valued and praised, and previously it wasn't when black women had those things naturally. So I do agree with that. There's lots more there as well, even things like hair braiding, hairstyles, dark skin, because there's lots of people that are over tanning, extreme tanning, and then they're using the reasons that they feel better with darker skin, but at the same time darker skin women are not being chosen for modelling contracts. So there is a lot there which she went into. She talks about this essay that was brought out in 2013 which is called Don't Touch My Hair, and this was she went into a whole chapter which I do agree with as well, about this idea that people view black people sometimes, especially in certain countries, as like a museum piece. And this whole idea, which I'll never understand in my life, how someone feels it's acceptable to go over to another human being and put your hands through their hair. I don't know how I would feel or what I would do if someone ever tried to do that to me, because to me that's just unacceptable. It doesn't matter if you admire or respect someone's hair and you see they've got you've not seen maybe many black people, or their natural hair looks good, you can say to them, I love your hair looks nice. But to just go over and put your hands in someone's hair like they're an animal, to me is not acceptable. And it doesn't matter what reasons people give for that people do that, then no. So the whole essay was based on that idea of not viewing black people sometimes as human, or just viewing them as objects. So it's okay for you to go over and touch their bum or touch their hair or whatever you want to do because you feel it's okay to do it. She talked about systemic racism, white supremacy. There was chapters on black self-hate, constructions of beauty and attractiveness. She said have always excluded the black female body. So she talks about this idea that black women are sexualized, so it's like, and even you see this a lot in adverts. There's quite a few adverts which I find quite offensive, that I've seen on British TV. So even if they're advertising, for example, panty liners, or they're advertising certain things, when they're showing the image of the black women, then they're half naked, or it's showing like definitely exposing like more than they do. But when they're showing the white woman, they're doing it in a way that's very discreet. And I've noticed that quite a lot. But there's other times where that happens. So the female body, it's always, there's a criticism, why is she showing so much, or she's exuding sexuality, but then it's always with a criticism attached to it. But whereas with other nationalities of women, sometimes it's, oh, she's beautiful, she's done this nude photo shoot and there's no problem with it. You know, Kim Kardashian broke the internet because she went nude, and no one said, like, you know, it was all brilliant, nude, let's embrace the body and that sort of thing. But then if you've got Serena Williams on the front of a magazine and her body was criticised so much, oh, she's too muscular, oh, she's masculine, oh, why did she do that, that doesn't look good. There's a lot of double standards, and I do agree with that. The other thing she talks about in the book, she said, navigating the world while black can be a maze. Racial trauma is complex and operates at many levels. We are not powerless. Trauma can leave us to feel powerless. We are powerful. She says this fear of power is something we must confront. This is something which I can 100% relate to. Because the media and also ourselves as a community, as black women, black men, continuously do the victim narrative. And I'm not saying that we're not victims of things, but I think we stay stuck in that victim mindset, meaning that we don't recognise that we are powerful. The amount of debates I've had with people where I've tried to empower, or I've tried to look at, okay, these are the things that are happening to us, but what are we going to do about them? It's about us taking action as people, and not staying stuck in this idea that we are powerless. And I think what she's trying to say really is that all the systems around us are operating to make us feel that we're helpless, that we're powerless. So if we buy into that and then we say, yes, we are, we can't do anything about this, we can't get a job because they won't allow us to, we can't walk down the street without someone hurting us, we can't, you know, if you just say we can't, and then you stay in that victim mindset, then of course you're not going to be able to, and also it means that you won't even try to. And what she's trying to say is that we must confront the fear of power. We must say to ourselves, it's going to be tough, there's challenges, but we can do things. She says this is the reason so many of us deny ourselves and our creativity. We must make the decision to materialise our potential because of not to materialise because of deep-seated fear. So it's basically her saying that, you know, regardless of what's going on, we still need to just reach our potential. Other chapters, she's talked about black shame, the impact of stereotypes, working whilst being black, raising black children. She talks about black love in another chapter. She talks about racial trauma, which includes racial events, assault or verbal abuse, being exposed to racism indirectly, micro-stressors, being followed in a shopping store, for example, being exposed to racial inequality data, so having lots of information continuously saying that you are not equal, that you're inferior, witnessing racism, so she said murder by the state, transmit group trauma, I'm not sure what that is, parents talking about white supremacy. So she's giving examples, this woman is, of daily things that impact on being black. So it's called Living While Black because what she's trying to say, because she's French, but I think she moved to the UK and I think she's lived in other places. She's trying to say the consensus is that as a black person, you're navigating certain things every day, racial trauma, you're navigating the media, you're navigating hearing lots of stories about, you know, bad things that are happening to yourself. So it's tough is what she's saying. She talks about black mental health in the chapter. She says, as human beings, we're designed to feel safe and to feel like we belong. Therefore, we can never fully become desensitized to racism. We often simply end up succeeding at denying, burying or disassociating from the pain it causes. So no one can say that racism doesn't exist, but what you have to do is choose what you're going to do about it. There are people that are constantly every day fighting against racism. They're constantly saying, you know, this is what expressing how they feel about racism. There's other people that are in denial that it exists. There's other people that disassociate. They say, well, it won't happen to me, or I've not experienced racism, so I don't know what other people are talking about. She talks about inequalities that exist amongst racial lines in terms of access to services, experience of how groups experience mental health services, outcomes centred on what happens to us, recovery. This is all to do with mental health. So these people that are going through the mental health system but not getting what they are entitled to. And I know that because my sister was never ever put forward. She had depression. She did end up taking her life. She never at no point was referred for counselling. And this is over 20 odd years that she was in and out of being sectioned. She was, displaying lots of different behaviours. There was times where she was stable enough to have been referred for counselling, and I'm very disappointed about that, but that's what happens. Misdiagnosis, people being diagnosed with things that they don't have, fear of accessing the service. So she talks about this David Bennett, a Rastafarian who was restrained for 25 minutes. I know about this case because I wrote to Community Care magazine and I discussed this case in my counselling course. My letter was printed in that magazine because I was so appalled. They were basically supposed to restrain this person for 3 minutes. Then they restrained him for 25 minutes leading to his death. And they were saying that they didn't understand him, that he posed as a threat, he was aggressive. But basically he was Rastafarian, he had spoke Patois, Jamaican, and they kept using that as an excuse to disadvantage him. So it says society refuses to see racism. Racism continues to harm us. She talks about a really powerful, I'll just end on this really, that she talks about a powerful experience that she had, very traumatic, where she was 7 years old and she was playing in France with her friends. And this white man came over to her, she said, and pushed her to the ground and punched her mum in the face. And she just remembers, she said, that feeling of like, why would someone do that? But also the feeling of fear. You know, why does someone hate my mum? Or she was also talking about when she came to the UK after that, it was a different kind of racism. So the kind of racism she's put middle-class white women excel at, the kind that hides from the mind and body. So she talks about these women that are professional and they've got impeccable manners and they've got lots of decorum, but they're very racist and they'll use it in a different way. And that's another chapter in it. That's probably something I'll do a video on myself, because I think that's true. People present in a certain way and society thinks, oh, this woman is living a high-class environment and this person would never be racist. Yeah, they're not going to be like maybe someone shouting the N-word out of a car or gun fingers in that sense, you know, or actually beating someone up. But their level of racism might be that they exclude you from certain groups, or when you're present, in their presence, they make it clear that you're not welcome, or they're hostile in other ways. So racism doesn't always have to be direct, and I think that's sort of what she's getting at. The book was very powerful. I gave it 8.5 out of 10. The reason for that is because there were so many things I could relate to. I could feel this woman's passion. She's providing information which I think we all need to hear about, especially if whether you're black or you're not. I bought it because the title, Living While Black, I was curious to figure out what she was going to explore. She was not just giving you statistics. There's lots of books out there which are just talking about racism. They're giving you data. They're giving you examples. Hers was a combination of making me even think and reflect on how I feel as a black woman living in the UK with a Jamaican parent and a Ghanaian father, how it all fits in. You know, and I think it's just nice sometimes to just reflect. And yeah, it's a powerful book. So Living While Black, The Essential Guide to Overcoming Racial Trauma by Ghislaine Kinu-Arney. So I hope you found this book review useful. If you have, feel free to leave your comments as usual. Feel free to share this with others. They might be interested in hearing it. And I'll speak to you